Okay, first of all, let me apologize for my New York German accent. Hopefully I can get across what I want to get across. Okay, I was born in Germany in 1922. As I grew up, I was told that Germany is the greatest country in the world. The Weimar Republic was governing the country. I had an uncle who was a lawyer who fought for Germany in the First World War. I had two uncles who were physicians who fought for Germany in the First World War. And I had a father who was a department store owner who fought for Germany in the First World War. It was very hard for us to digest the fact that Germany lost that First World War. We hated the Versailles, we called it dictating of Versailles. We thought Germany got a war deal. We were German nationalists. My family lived in Germany since 800, which was established. And I knew I was Jewish, and to my shame, I have to admit, we did not practice the Jewish religion. Okay. In 1933, when I was 11 years old, things changed. I was going to a German high school, and all of a sudden Hitler came into power. I had a history professor who made it his business after 1933 to constantly tell the class, the Jews are cowards. The Jews are shirkers. Everybody knows what a shirker is,
No.
right?
No.
Okay, some people don't know what a shirker is. Yeah. The German have an interesting word for it. They call it Drückeberger. You hide between two mountains so they can't see you. Okay. And the Jews are out to get you financially. They're cheats. They are our misfortune. Well, after listening to this day in, day out, in the beginning they ignored the kids because I was the soccer star of the high school team. And as time went on, not only did they believe it, I started to believe it. I said, gee, maybe there's something to this, because there was a deep, dark secret in my family. Namely, my father was home on a furlough in 1918, about 6 weeks before the war ended. And he had a 2-week furlough. And he came home, and his mother, my grandmother, said, when it's time for you to report back to the front lines, see me first. So he said, what's going on? I don't want to be thrown in the clink. Just 2 weeks from now, you see me before you're supposed to report back. My grandmother felt she had another son who was doing emergency operations in the front line, right at the field lazaret, we called it, I don't know, first aid station. And he's exposed to danger, you're not going back. So what she did, the day before he was supposed to report back, she boiled a copper kettle full of boiling water. She said, Fritz, sit down. Spread your legs, and he did. And she poured that boiling water over his legs. So, instead of reporting back to the front lines, he reported to the hospital, the field hospital, to the army hospital. Greta, my wife here, saw the scars on my father many years later. But, shirker. Are we shirkers? Are we really shirkers? Well, look what happened in my own family. So that is the reason, although I'm proud of having been a witchy boy, I'm much prouder of having volunteered for the paratroopers to see some serious action and earn my citizenship in this country. Now, you want to know how we emigrated?
Yes, yeah.
Sure. My father was a rather well-to-do man, and he said, I'm not going to leave Germany without any means. You could not take money out of Germany except for $50 when you went to a neighboring country. And he took several trips to Luxembourg, which borders on Germany, to France, to Belgium, and he made it his business, before they were searched at the last station, to go to the bathroom, and underneath these fancy German trains, they had a terrific lavatory. Is it lavatory?
Sure.
Yeah. With a closet full of towels, and he'd stick big denominations of money under the second last towel, hoping that after the train crossed the borders, his money would be still there. And it always was. So he came to this country. We had $25,000, and the people who sponsored us were told from France, look, we are not without means. You don't have to worry that you ever have to support us. We can stand on our own 2 feet. And then they sponsored us, and my father had to bribe the German employee at the consulate, American consulate, to get ahead in line. There's all kinds of difficulty. But we made it, and in 1938 we made an entrance to the United States. My mother dug up a second step cousin who lived in Brooklyn, and her husband was a policeman. And they visited Germany once when my mother was a little girl, and she approached them, and they sponsored us. You know, and they found another cousin who was in the meat wholesale business. Some or other, cousin after cousin, they sponsored us. They saved our lives, obviously. And it's a funny thing, part of my family got saved and part of my family got killed.
What motivated?
Well, things had gotten progressively worse. I was beaten up every day on my way to school. I had to take a train to the next bigger city to high school. I was beaten up every day, every single day. They didn't hurt me bad, but I was bloody and Jew bastard. And one day they said Jew bastard too many times, and I fought back, and I knocked the 2 teeth out of a Hitler Youth boy, and they had to take me out of town to a different school, and my father settled it because the mayor was not anti-Jewish. My father settled it with $5,000, gave the parents of the kid $5,000. So he decided we have to get the hell out of here. Well, I went to a German high school for 6 years, and first I learned French. I kept on learning French, and then after the 4th year we started learning English. So I had 2 years of English, and but I'm a bit of a linguist. I pick up languages very easily. I couldn't, my accent is still here, but what the heck. My father couldn't find work. We had $25,000, which is probably today $250,000. So we weren't exactly poor, but my mother decided to take in boarders and renters and people who needed a room. We rented an apartment and they paid for the rent. Then it looked so good that we rented a second apartment and rented that out. We didn't even live there. But somehow or other we made ends meet. But my father, who couldn't find work, decided to go into business. At those days, in the late 30s, all women wore hats. And he decided to go into the ladies' hat millinery business. and the business didn't succeed. He lost $6,000. Now they only have $19,000. Oh my God, they weren't used to this kind of thing, you know. So my father decided, oh yeah, my uncles had in the meantime immigrated, both physicians, my mother's brother and my father's brother. And they got their licenses but couldn't make a living because people could not afford a doctor's fee. They went to the clinic for free. And
I was going to say.
yeah, my father decided, you know what, you want to go to school? I was going to high school at the time here. I let you go to school, but you're going to learn a trade because every carpenter is working, every mechanic is working, every butcher is working, every baker is working. You're going to become a baker. And he went to a German, non-Jewish German pastry shop, and he offered the owner of this pastry shop $5 a week if he were to teach me the business. But he said, I want, you know, a German way of teaching him the business, the thorough apprenticeship, you know, this kind of. So before and after school, I worked in the bakery. And then in order to make it a little bit easier for my mother to have some money, I took a job teaching, giving German, tutoring German to a college kid. I got 75 cents an hour, was unheard of. It was a big deal. My mother showed up with, oh, Walter's making sense, you know, this kind of thing. And I took a job at a butcher shop on Saturdays because I was off in the bakery delivering meat. After 6 o'clock, I was through in the butcher shop on Saturdays. I worked for a grocery store till 10 o'clock. Mr. Sarro, I remember him, you know. And in the middle of all this, I worked for a dry cleaning store delivering dry cleaning. Okay. I was stationed in Camp Ritchie, Maryland. First, I took my infantry basic in Camp Lee and learned how to shoot different arms. And
how did you get into the Army?
Yeah.
Pardon?
How did you get into the Army?
From being 16 to
I was
the
drafted into the Army.
And
In
how old were you?
1942, I was just beginning of
How old
40,
were you then?
20.
20. You drafted.
And they sent me to Camp Lee. I had infantry basic. I knew how to do obstacle courses. I was in pretty good shape. I was always an exerciser. I played a lot of soccer. And all of a sudden I got the first sergeant. I had to report to the first sergeant who was a guard. My God, the first sergeant.
Wait, Daddy, what did you do in Camp Lee? Weren't you a baker there?
No, they were, after infantry basic, they had in mind keeping me there because I made some good apple cake.
Yeah, I remember.
That's the truth. That's true. But then they saw my record. They said I must have had an IQ over 110. And they saw that I speak German and French. And I had to report to the first sergeant. And he said, Bachenheimer, yes, Sergeant. You're shipping out tomorrow. I said, where am I going? You're going to Camp Ritchie, Maryland. That's an military intelligence service center. I said, I don't want to leave you. I want to make apple cake. He said, I know, but you should have had a lower IQ. So make a long story short, I shipped to Camp Ritchie, and I got to Camp Ritchie, and I heard every language under the sun. I had a personal interview with an officer who, he said, the accent here is on language, in particular the German language. If you qualify, you may go to school here. I said, well, what would that get me? Well, you could graduate and be jumped from private to the highest sergeant there is. I was thinking, how much does a master sergeant make? And I came to the conclusion I could wind up with $200 a month. My God, that's a lot of money. So, make a long story short, I passed. I speak German better than I speak English, and my family always stressed grammar and don't make any mistakes and whom and who and this and that, you know, and this kind of thing. So I started going to, first I was on the coal detail because the class hadn't started yet. The 7th class was going to finish in 4 weeks, and I had to shovel coal for 4 weeks. And then started going to school. Now, school consisted of anything pertaining to enemy information. You saw the picture.
Yeah.
Being German was my main language, I was going to be trained as an interrogator. But it also consisted of photo interpretation. We learned by a bipart how to evaluate aerial photographs. We learned how to evaluate German and French documents. We were exposed to Italian army organization. I had to learn every rank in the Italian army because there was also an Italian section in Camp Ritchie. And contrary to what everybody thinks, Camp Ritchie, the German part of Camp Ritchie, did not consist of primarily Jewish Germans. It was 60% non-Jewish Germans and 40% Jewish Germans. I know this now because there's a reunion coming up in July in Washington, government-sponsored, for the camp. Those people were still...
Walter, were the non-Jewish Germans who were there, had they emigrated from Germany, or they were...
It's an interesting question. I was the chief interrogator on an interrogation team that consisted of only non-Jews. The officer in charge was a guy by the name who was still alive, my best friend, Carl Miller. He was a first lieutenant. He came to this country when he was 2 years old. His parents didn't like the economic situation in Germany. They immigrated to the United States, to Delaware, and hired themselves out as a couple to the DuPonts. And the DuPonts put my friend Carl Miller through college. The other people on my team was a Lieutenant Beer, who was Viennese. Then I was the chief interrogator. Then there was a staff sergeant and a technician 3rd grade and the driver. We had a Jeep. They were all non-Jewish. Bielefeld, Zimmer, Prager were their names. Bielefeld became a good friend of mine. His father was the editor of the New York Staatszeitung, the German paper. There was a German paper in New York. But my best friend was Carl Miller. He's the only one still alive. The people who are sponsoring this government-sponsored Camp Ritchie reunion knew where everybody is. They told me, Mr. Bachenheimer, you were on interrogation team 115 with the 17th Airborne, you did this and this, and I don't want to brag, whatever it is I did because I didn't want to be a coward and a shirker. Okay.
Did the non-Jews who had emigrated, did they come for political reasons, their opposition to...
No, they came way before Hitler came into power.
Oh, okay.
They were all either born here. Bielefeld was born here, but he spoke perfect German. And Bill Zimmer lived in Rahway, New Jersey. He came here because his parents couldn't make a living in Germany. And Carl Miller, his parents were somewhat educated. They worked for the DuPonts all their life till they retired. And he is still alive, but he's handicapped. He can't walk. He's 90 years old, my age. I'm going to have to see him before I go, no matter what, because he also went with me to my hometown when I got some retribution for the bodily beatings that I took every day. And the kid that led that group to beat me up was still alive when I was in my hometown with the victorious American Army. Would I beat him up the way I did then? No. Because now I'm 90, and then I was 22. Did I dream about the beatings they gave me every day? Yes. Did I want to get even? Yes. Carl Miller, my best friend, was in the next room when I beat him up. This is on tape. I maybe gonna arrest me as a war criminal. My God, what am I exposing myself to?
The grandson can edit it.
Yeah, Jamie, you're gonna edit, right?
It's not live.
Another adventure.
Yeah, but I did get even with this gentleman, and I don't want to say what Carl Miller said. Should I say it?
No.
I want to hear.
When I'm off record, I say it.
Over lunch.
I asked Carl Miller, I said, Carl, didn't you feel you were German at one time or another? Weren't you proud that Hitler got Czechoslovakia, Poland? He got everything he wanted without killing having a German killed. I despise that son of a bitch. I adopted this country. This is my country, he said.
That's what Zimmer said.
Miller.
I'm sorry.
said.
Miller.
Yeah.
Oh, every one of my,
Felt that way.
I had a great rapport with them, and it never, they were really decent people.
Daddy, were all these men paratroopers too?
They were all paratroopers.
So, but you didn't have to be a paratrooper to be a Richie boy, right?
No, I only became a paratrooper in England.
Oh.
Do you want to tell that story, how
Yeah.
you became a paratrooper?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, the most important factor is that I didn't want to be a shirker. But anyway, I was at a military intelligence camp in England by the name of Broadway. I guess Johnny was there once. Okay, it was very nice there, you know. And all of a sudden, a major from the 82nd Airborne, which is an airborne division, a parachute and glider division, came and assembled all us sergeants and said, okay, we need interrogators in the airborne division. When we jump, we want to interrogate people to see what's in front of us, what's in back of us. And we really need people to interrogate, tactical interrogation on the battlefield. I mean, some of you I know have a special reason to fight. The accent, you're German Jewish. Or are you all cowards? I said, sir, you got me. I'm going to join the paratrooper. Sergeant, that's very nice of you. You're going to have to be examined. It's going to be a very tough physical training for 8.5 weeks. And you may not make it. I said, I'll make it. And make a long story short, I did my 5 qualifying jumps. And 4 other guys volunteered with it. Greta met one of them. He's also 90 years old. He came to see me. He's also still, but he was not on my team. And I had no trouble making because I was in good physical shape. And I was attached to the 82nd Airborne. I have a jump certificate that's signed by General Gavin. Mean anything to you? No. Yeah? He later on was ambassador to France, Gavin, under Kennedy. And I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I got some decorations and
You went in on D-Day +6, right?
+7.
7.
Well, why don't you fill in the story? So you were drafted in 42. You're in Maryland.
I'm now first in Virginia, then in Maryland.
In Maryland, and you get your training
Yes.
in Maryland.
Yes.
And then you go to the UK
Then I jumped from private to master sergeant.
because you.
Because I did well in school.
Right. And then you sent to the UK.
First I went on maneuvers with the task of making the American soldier security conscious. I went to Louisiana and I was on an intelligence team that was told. I went onto a truck with the blues, even while I was fighting for the Reds, but I had a blue band on. You understand what I'm saying? There was a blue army fighting a red army on maneuvers. And I was with the Red Army, but I went on a truck where blues were captured. I put on a blue band and asked them all kinds of questions. And when I got through asking them, the truck was unloaded and they were told, here's what you did incorrectly. You told the guy who was asking you a question whom you don't know, he might have been a German. You do not say anything but name, rank, and concern. Then I repeated what they told me, how strategically important it was that I did. Twice I went home and then I went to the UK. While I was in England, there's a difference between strategic and tactical interrogation. Strategic interrogation can be done way behind the lines. Tactical is on the battlefield. I went out with an INR platoon, intelligence and reconnaissance platoon, to capture prisoners during my fighting days.
Oh, tell my favorite story.
No.
Yes!
But I did some strategic interrogation in England of the Africa Corps, people that were captured in Africa. And I noticed that these people, even though they lost in Africa, they were completely convinced the Führer is going to win the war for us. There's no question in our mind. I said, but you just lost in Africa. Doesn't matter. We will win this war. And then as I interrogated them, in the Battle of the Bulge, when I interrogated people, and they were going back and they ran out of gas, they were willing to talk over a loudspeaker for Germans to surrender. And Carl Miller and my officer in charge and I did that. And we had some success. Nothing. I was primarily interrogating because I got orders from regimental or division headquarters. This was what we want. Where are the minefields? Ba, ba, ba. And there was a constant, people gave up, the Germans gave up, you know, right? And there was constant interrogations going on. And I used to have general officers and I'd correct their German, but no more. I said, God damn it, you don't even know your own language. And when I landed, you know, on March 25th, when I landed across the Rhine, we were fighting people 14 years old, 16 years old, 15 years old. We were all in great shape. We had these kids there, you know. So I used to line up 10 people at a time. I used to say, who's got the correct time? 9:15 to 9:60. Give me the watches. And amongst the Africa Corps, I got a guy who was a German sergeant, and we had a book called the Order of Battle Book. Every important prisoner or every important officer, even master sergeants, were listed there, their family, where they came from, how many kids they had. The military intelligence, the United States military intelligence had this information. So I get a guy in from the Africa Corps, what the Jits would call a nebbish, you know. But where do you come from? He said, wo kommt, okay. Münchhausen. The guy says Münchhausen is next to my hometown. I said, I'm going to tell you now how good all in German, of course, how good the American intelligence service is. I'm going to tell you, where did you live in Münchhausen? Fuhrstraße 22. Oh, next to you had. And I said, and there's a town next to your town called Wetter. That's where I come from. Did you know anybody there? Oh, yes. I said, did you know the Kreisleiter there? This is the Kunz. Oh, yes. I said, you see, don't hide anything. I got all this. Well, I had some fun. You know. I talked 16 Germans into, after I killed one, I talked 16 Germans into surrendering, who were firing artillery shells into our drop zone. where the gliders and paratroopers were coming down. I don't know.
So what did you say?
What did you say to them?
You want it in German?
Sure, if that's the only way you want to give it.
What did I say? Nothing. I came, two guys were with me, not from my platoon, from my intelligence team. Two guys that were part of the 17th Airborne. And we saw them firing from the edge of the woods into the drop zone. Mortar fire, you know. You know what mortars are? Okay. I said, we got to get these guys. So we went in ditches. Two guys went around this way, and I went around this way, and I said, start shooting when I give you the sign. And they started shooting, and I started shooting, and I said in German, Hände hoch! Does anybody understand what this is? Yeah. Waffen weg! Throw away your weapons. Ergebt euch! And give up. And with this I shot a man through the stomach who bled to death. I had a German medic do an emergency bandage. I saw him the next day leaning against the tree with a half a Chesterfield that I had put in his mouth. I still feel terrible about that. Okay, I've been the hero long enough. Now let me interrogate you a little bit. Today there are people who deny that they were concentrated.
Yeah.
It makes me crazy.
Yeah.
And my German compatriots who, from my team, they began to hate the Germans more than I did. I sometimes had to intervene when they interrogated an SS man because I'm on tape. Then after I did this, General Miley, the divisional commander, heard about it, and they put some things on me. And he decided, since I had given the General Staff German lessons, that I would be the right man to become his interpreter and bodyguard. Because obviously I'm not a coward.
Or a shirker.
And
Not a shirker. Not a shirker.
Not a shirker.
Not a shirker.
General Miley was the divisional commander. He liked a lot the way I taught German as compared to a lieutenant from whom I took over. The lieutenant told me that you must teach this class strictly Berlitz. Only German is spoken in this class. Is that an order, sir, or a request? Well, I'm just telling you, do that, Sergeant. Okay. I decided not to do that. I decided to explain sentence structure and why the Germans do this and why it's not done in English and so on. I gave him a reason. And at that time, General Miley decided, Sergeant, I give you a field commission. I said, sir, hopefully I don't insult you, but I'm a civilian at heart. I also had a girlfriend in the United States, not this one, no.
I think.
I had a girlfriend in the United States who wanted me to come back to get married. And in fact, she introduced me to her.
I just got.
Yeah. So I would have had to sign up for 4 years. He would have made me a second lieutenant. God knows how far I could have gone. Maybe I would have ended up in Korea, I don't know.
And you should
But
know that after the war, my father was a baker and had several bakeries. So
Oh,
that
I
had all
wondered
ties
where
in
that all
together.
went.
Yeah, it all ties
Instead
together.
of going to school, I decided, I got married, I had kids, to make some money. And I went into bakery, wholesale and retail business
In New York?
in New York.
In New York.
Yeah, I had some. At the height of things, 78 employees, and
Oh, good business.
we produced for all kinds of people, delivered, and it was relatively successful. Hey, when Kissinger went to school, I could have done the same thing.
So are we gonna get your apple cake recipe?
Sure. I was not, although I like baking now, I bake bread at home, you know. I was not a baker by passion. It gave me a way to make some decent money. You know. I went back to my hometown. I knew the good people and I knew the bad people. There were some good Germans, don't let anybody kid you. There were Germans that felt for us. There were Germans that in the sneak came to see us, that told us, get the hell out, I wish we could go with you because this is not going to end well. And I knew the bad guys. And when the rumor got around, Walter Bachenheimer is back in town. This was now, I left in 38, came back in 45. A lot of people left their homes and hid in the fields. But the good people told me that some of these bad Nazis, while they were flying high, took all kinds of whiskey and silk clothing and all kinds of jewelry out of France, and they hid it someplace underground. And I made it my business to find some of those things, and I did. But the only guy with whom I got even physically is the guy that beat me up every day, you know. And he told me, I took him in a room and, Jamie, this tape is not going anywhere.
People would be interested. So how did you find him? What was it like when you first saw him?
Well, the good people told me where he was hiding.
Where was he?
He was with his girlfriend in a cellar apartment. And Carl Miller and Bill Zimmer, my teammates. I can't have this tape sent out, Jamie.
So we won't send it out.
You're not going to send it.
No.
No.
So help you.
So this they're not even recording. They just want to
Carl Miller and Bill Zimmer said, is this the Can I say it the way?
Yes, yeah, of course you can.
You can't say in front of Jim.
Is this fucking guy that beat the shit out of you that you were dreaming about? I said, that's the guy. Okay, go handle him. They went outside, and I said, in the finest German, I said, he became a pharmacist in the meantime. I said, you know, you didn't give me a chance to defend myself yet. You always had 4 guys with you. I give you my word. If you can knock me down, nothing will happen to you. If you can beat the hell out of me, I want you to fight back. No, you know, we did this because we believed that time what the Führer... Okay, when he heard we believed that time what the Führer said, all of a sudden I got nuts. I was driving a Harley Davidson and I had these long Harley Davidson gloves, you know. And I just, the more I beat him, the more I wanted to beat him. I never had another dream about him after that. And he flopped down on the floor and I broke his bones here, broke his nose. And when my 2 guys got in, they said, why'd you kill that son of a bitch? Non-Jews.
Yeah.
We all had
I think I've exhausted my material.
Okay.
The Ritchie Boys movie. Well, it's basically true. The course was very hard. You had a test after every subject. And I was sitting next to a Colonel Phillips, who was born in 1893, he was in his 50s, who took the same course I did. They did not differentiate between high-ranking officers or enlisted personnel. One of the participants in Camp Ritchie was David Rockefeller. Took the same course I did. You know, the head of Chase Manhattan.
Sure.
He's still alive, by the way, he's 96 years old. Henry Kissinger, for some reason, did not get there. But there's a well-known list of participants who graduated from Camp Ritchie, as I did. is a list of college professors who later on became famous, and it's unbelievable. Klaus Mann was there, went to school at a different class. You know who Klaus Mann is? Anybody?
Thomas Mann.
Who heard of Thomas Mann? Yeah, Magic Mountain,
Yes.
right? The Buddenbrooks. He won the, sure. His son went to school in Cambridge. He committed suicide later on, 1946. But, I mean, it wasn't, you could say, a pretty smart clique. There, some people didn't make school, they became bakers. Bakers, you know, in Cambridge, and until the Italian prisoners appeared, then they didn't do any more dirty work, they had it made. Cambridge was like, if you saw it today, you would say, what do we saw? A lake, you know, and so now they're making a reunion. They want me back, they called me 3 times. They told, I could send this is a good statement, making a statement, you know. I had several relationships in Germany with German women because you couldn't help it, you know, whatever. But basically, I had a girlfriend in the United States who told me 2 nights before I left for overseas that she was a juvenile diabetic. And I said, so? What the hell did I know, juvenile diabetic? We were going to get married for sure. And if I make it back. I got another pass a night before I left for overseas. And I had 2 uncles who were physicians. My mother's brother, Uncle Julius, John, you knew them both, right? And my father's brother, Uncle Max. I said, what the hell, let me find out about juvenile diabetes. So I first went to Uncle Max, who was a surgeon. I said, Uncle Max, so-and-so, the Rosalind told me that she's a juvenile diabetic. You want to marry her, huh? I said, well, yeah, I'm in love with her. She's a very nice girl. I have to discourage you. This is not a good thing, especially when you have children or whatever. I don't want you somehow or other cut off this relationship. Then I went over across the street. They lived across the street from one another, to Uncle Julius, my mother's brother, who had turned from a dermatologist into a psychiatrist because he got a job at a psychiatric hospital. He studied psychiatry, became a psychiatrist. So Uncle Julius so-and-so, oh, I like Rosalind a lot. She's a very nice girl. Walter, why don't you're going overseas, cross that bridge when you get back home. I said, is it a bad sickness? It's not a good sickness, but go, don't worry about it, just go overseas and come back. In one of my jumps, the Germans were shooting at us before we could jump out. And I got very scared. And all of a sudden I got up and I said, God, I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to marry Rosalind, juvenile diabetes or no juvenile, if you get me out of this mess. If there is a God, he got me out of this mess. I didn't marry with the Rosalind, not because of the diabetes.
Your daughter says that you can do you don't have to do it. I know you're an honest guy. You can do 60 sit-ups in 1 minute and keep that up for an hour. Is that true?
I do 4,000 sit-ups in 57 minutes.
Okay, well, anyway.
You think I'm a little nuts, don't you?
Oh,
They make you very fit.
You know what? I got 2 infections in the hospital, and my surgeon said the only reason you made it is because you were in great physical shape. At 87.
I think you're an icon. I don't think you're nice. I want to be you.
When you grow up, right?
Yeah, I hope I didn't come across, like I wanted to blow him, but I don't need
No.
No, Walter,
I
it was
don't
that-
have
Thank you,
it.
Daddy.
No,
That was very
thank you
nice.
so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.